Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss unlockables in video games. So this is a partner episode, I guess you could call it, where earlier today, well, for you guys it'll be the last episode, but for me it's just earlier this morning when I was driving into my job, I was talking about unlockables as far as actual extra game modes. So it didn't have to specifically be unlockables, it was just extra game modes in general. So you guys can check that out because there'll be a little bit of crossover in this episode as well. But for this one, it's specifically unlockables. It can be anything. It can be extra game modes, it can be costumes, it can be weapons, it can be full-on characters. And just to kick things off, and I'm going to probably end up kicking things off with one that nobody would expect because it's from Devil May Cry 2. And honestly, it's probably what I would consider to be the greatest unlockable in a video game. And it's a brand new character, and that's playing as Trish. When I was a kid, despite everything that is Devil May Cry 2, when I beat that game and I unlocked a brand new character, which I think technically you have to beat it on like hard mode or whatever, but I unlocked Trish, and it was like, okay, so a new character. I didn't even know who Trish was because 2 was actually my first Devil May Cry game. So I was like, okay, Trish. And then I started playing as her, and she has a completely different playstyle. They made a fully third character playable, and it's like you can throw the sword, and then she has like hand-to-hand combat moves, and her devil trigger, she can like shoot lightning and stuff. And I was like, this is insane. I've never played a game, and admittedly, I don't know if I have since, not counting fighting games, obviously, where it's like, hey, you unlocked a new character. I mean, if you want to count it, sure, but let's be like, we're not going to count that. We're not counting that. This is an action game where you go through Dante or Lucia, bring Lucia back. They never will, and that's okay, I guess. But Trish as a playable character, as just an unlockable with a completely different fighting style. It wasn't like she was a skin for Lucia. It would be an even funnier skin for Dante. She's just a new character, a brand new character that you can play as. And I loved that as a kid because it was so different to go through a game and then you unlock a character and they actually have a completely different fighting style, which they made for 2, by the way, because I have played the first game when the HD collection came out. I played all 3 of them. Trish was not playable at any point in the first game, and she hardly does anything. It's not like anything really happens action-wise with her character, minus a couple of things. It's not like they were like, okay, well, she does this, and this in the first game. We'll make those moves. It's like she doesn't do anything. And they just made up a whole character, like, combat system for her. And it's like, this is nuts. And like I said, she literally has moves in the game that you don't get. Like, they're just completely locked to her as a character. I think they've added some of those moves because one of them was, and this was like the main one, which is she has Dante's father's sword, the Sword of Sparta, just for people that don't know Devil May Cry. And her move of being able to actually throw the blade and it spins around and it attacks other enemies and then you can run around and do hand-to-hand combat was insane. I was like, wow, that's not even a move you can unlock for Dante. It's not something that Lucia can do either, and it's just brand new moves for just one unlockable character. I thought that was insane. So I still, to this day, consider that to be like, and it's, it sucks. It's Devil May Cry 2. Even as my first game, it was like, this is fun. And then you go through and it's like, wow, this city level is trash. Like, why'd they even build that level so big? And like, you fight 2 tanks. It's weird. So even as a kid, it was like, there's some parts of this game that are not good. And then you unlock a brand new character with a completely different set of moves. And it's like, well, what the F is this? Like, where'd all this work come from? But we have the rest of Devil May Cry 2. So that I just wanted to kick things off with because not many people I think are ever going to say that, where it's like, yeah, Devil May Cry 2, one of the best unlockables ever. A brand new character with a completely different fighting style and moveset. But it's true. Devil May Cry 2. They had something there. They had something. So there's Devil May Cry. But other than that, just to stick with Capcom for a minute, of course, Resident Evil. This is where a little bit of that crossover comes in. Mercenaries mode being a big unlockable has always been great from Resident Evil, starting with RE3 with that version of Mercenaries. And then that version of Mercenaries also allows for extra unlockables as you go through and save up your money. You get, unlimited handgun, assault rifle, Gatling gun, rocket launcher, and then the just magic of the unlimited ammo briefcase where you can buy that and then every weapon that you pick up in the game you can just reload infinitely. It's such a cool unlockable to have because the weapons that they have, like I said, it's a very small list. You get the handgun, the assault rifle, the Gatling gun isn't even in the game, so that's like a brand new weapon that you can unlock, which oddly enough Resident Evil 3 made the Gatling gun my favorite gun on earth because I just thought it looked super cool. And then the infinite rocket launcher, which also isn't in Resident Evil 3. You don't actually get the rocket launcher like you do in the other Resident Evil games where you get to the end and you shoot a missile. So they actually changed that up for 3 where you basically use like a giant laser cannon, which is super cool, of course. And just like with the RE3 remake, you use a giant laser gun. So the rocket was more of like a callback to the other Resident Evil games where it's like, hey, here's the infinite rocket launcher from Resident Evil 1. So that was super cool. And of course, like I said, the unlockable briefcase. I love those weapons. I always thought that was super cool. Of course, Resident Evil 1 and 2 also had weapons, although I'll say this, I did not know for the life of me that Resident Evil 2 had unlockables at all when I was a kid. I didn't know it was like, hey, you play a certain amount of time, or typically the combination of a quick time plus 0 saves, and then you can unlock this, this, and this. I did not know that as a kid. And I wasn't really playing the game to try to be that good. So I had no idea. I never unlocked anything except for the regular special modes, which were Fourth Survivor, Tofu, and then Extreme Battle Mode for RE2 just comes from, beating the game. But I swear, and everybody says this, and maybe it's just a weird lapse in my brain, I don't remember ever playing Extreme Battle Mode. People always say like, oh, you just beat the game and then boom, you unlock Extreme Battle Mode. And I'm like, I don't remember that ever. Like as a kid, I don't remember playing that. As an adult, I don't remember doing that because I bought 2 and 3 on the PS3. I do not even then, and that's very recent, and I'm still like, I don't remember this Extreme Battle Mode. I don't remember picking Chris Redfield in a Resident Evil 2. It's super weird, and that is like a weird spot in my brain where I'm like, I don't remember that ever. Fourth Survivor, 100%. I remember that. You play as Hunk, play as Tofu, of course. Like all those, I remember that stuff. I don't remember, Extreme Battle Mode or whatever it was. But I do remember Code Veronica had a battle mode as well. And it was the most interesting thing at the time because much like with Devil May Cry, where it's like, oh, this is an insane brand new character. In Code Veronica, the battle mode that they added in that allowed you to play the game in first person. It allowed you to do the battle mode in first person. You couldn't do the whole game. But the fact that they even had that really blew my mind as a kid because I was like, wow, like you could just, I didn't know nearly as much about game design. So in my head, I was like, I thought you had to do like a million different things to just switch the camera. I didn't know, now it's like, you can do that with mods and it's like, you just move the camera and just attach it to a different part of the rig. And it's like, oh, okay. It's much simpler than I knew as a kid. But back then it blew my mind. I was like, holy crap, they can do this? Like, why can't I just switch? Like, they should do that for every Resident Evil, just poof, first person mode, which they should also do for every Resident Evil, by the way. Like, I genuinely believe they should do that now since they've literally worked it into the RE engine. They should 100% do that. But that blew my mind as a kid as well. It was like, wow, I can do first person mode, which may or may not have anything to do with the fact that Code Veronica, of course, has a tie-in with the Survivor series, where the second Survivor game is Code Veronica, for anyone that didn't know that. So that's probably why you could do that in that game, because it was like, well, we've literally made an entire arcade game based off of Code Veronica that is in first person. So they were like, well, we'll just poof, here you go, you can do it. So it's weird that it's only in that battle mode, and they didn't make that an option for the main campaign, but that blew my mind as a kid as well. Of course, all the costumes and everything like that as far as unlockables are definitely great. But one of the things that, and I still consider this an unlockable, it kind of, I guess in a sense it kind of fits in with the extra modes thing, although I didn't think about it earlier, but unlocking New Game Plus is one of the most fun things in any video game. Like it's obviously very simple. You're just playing the game again, but you're more powerful. Play any horror game with New Game Plus and it's like, at once I was trapped in here with you and now you're trapped in here with me. So, it's just fun. It lets you go from horror to action, and that's just a great time. But in that realm of, New Game Plus, there's still lots of unlockables, a bunch of Resident Evils. I don't want to stick with Resident Evil, even though that's like, there's like every Resident Evil, except for like the Resident Evil 3 remake, has like a lot of really good unlockables. But to stick with horror and just jump to another franchise, Dead Space, Foam Finger is definitely one of my favorite unlockables ever. It's super funny, and it's just a fun thing to have. Like, by the time you get that, you've beaten the game a million times, because for anyone that has not experienced the Foam Finger from Dead Space, it is a one-hit kill weapon that you get. They added it in Dead Space 2, so it's in 2 and 3. In the first game, I don't think they have that at all. They don't have like a special unlockable weapon. You just get New Game Plus. But for 2 and 3, they're like, hey, we'll put like a silly extreme unlockable for people that do like the hardest difficulty. And in 2, in both games it's the Foam Finger, but they're different. In 2, it's a red foam finger, and then in 3, it's a green foam finger. And what they added for 3 is that when you do like the reload animation, because it's literally a foam finger, you do a reload, you just hit reload, and then they play a guitar riff, and then it's like the guitar horns in the air, and the character like bobs their head. And so you can see that because 3 is actually co-op. You can watch other characters do that as they're around you, and it's super fun. So I absolutely love the foam finger, and I think it's an amazing unlockable. Also, aside from the rock thing, in 2, when they first had the game, or when they first added the foam finger as a weapon, the sound effect for it, because every weapon in Dead Space has 2 firing modes, is bang bang is the regular one, and then if you do the alternate fire, he goes pew pew, and that's just the whole game. He says bang 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 pew 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 pew. I love that. It's super silly, and you get that from beating the hardest difficulty. So I absolutely love that in both Dead Space 2 and 3, and of course it's a one-hit kill. So once you get that, it's a one-hit kill unlimited weapon where it's like, you know, like I said, they're trapped in here with you at that point. Like everything's one hit kill. You just like blow things apart, which is great because, you know, the dismemberment system, it makes it more valuable compared to some other games where if they don't have that, it doesn't look as cool. But you're just like, you know, blowing limbs off with a foam finger, and this dude's just going bang, 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 and you're taking out horrible looking monsters on a spaceship. So that's definitely great. Definitely one of my favorite unlockables in the game is, without a doubt, the foam finger from Dead Space. But you know, like costumes, I think are definitely some of my favorites. I feel like I'm only talking about Capcom because all that's popping in my head is like every Resident Evil game, and then of course Devil May Cry. I like a lot of the, I shouldn't even say a lot. I like some of the Devil May Cry costumes. Like some of them tend to be pretty cool, but I do find myself not switching very often when it comes to Devil May Cry unlockables as far as, you know, the actual costumes. Some of them are cool, you know, if you go like Devil May Cry 3, like Virgil and like the crazy sort of like vampire look that they gave him with like the ruffled collar and everything. I always thought that looked interesting, but I can't say it was like one of my favorites. Of course, technically I believe, well, not anymore, but I think when they introduced it in the second game, you did have to unlock Bloody Palace mode when that first came out. Now I think it's just like Mercenaries in Resident Evil, where it's like, I'm pretty sure you can just jump right into Mercenaries mode. I don't think you have to actually unlock it anymore. But still some great unlockables. Obviously, once again, Resident Evil with all their costumes. Although I do have to give a shout out to RE2, the original one, where, once again, amongst the myriad of things that I had no idea about for Resident Evil 2, the way to get unlockable costumes in that game is very unique compared to, I think, any other game I've ever played, where it's not, hey, you beat the game doing a certain amount of time, or, you know, within a certain amount of time. You literally just play the game, and then you get the costumes in the beginning, because you have to run through up to a certain segment. You have to get to the RPD without picking up any items. And if you pick up no items, you can run into the zombie version of Brad Vickers. For those of you that might not remember, who played the remake of 3, he's the guy that was helping Jill in the beginning of the game in like the yellow vest. That's Brad Vickers. So you run into the zombie version of him in RE2, and if you manage to kill him, you have to go past him because he's like a really powerful zombie. They replayed that in RE3, so like if you fight him outside, the reason it takes so long, that was actually more of a reference to the fact that you have to do the same thing in RE2. If you pick up no items and you find them, you actually have to go into the RPD, go past the first Laker, get the shotgun, then come back out and kill him, because you probably won't have enough ammo to take him out with just the handgun. You might get lucky, but I always have to run in and get the shotgun and then come back out and deal with him. But you kill him, he has a key on him, and then you go to the first save room, and then the dark room where you do the prints. It's not really the first save spot, but the first main save room, we'll call it. You go in there, and that's where you get the unlockable costumes. So you get 2 for Leon. He gets like one with like a skull jacket and some pants, which I always thought were very, very vibrant. And then he also gets like kind of a combat outfit. And in the combat outfit, that's where he has his gun held sideways. And for Claire, she actually gets one costume, but she also gets the single action army, which is in the Resident Evil 2 remake. So she gets a weapon and a costume, and I really wish that costume was in the Resident Evil 2 remake. I was like, man, please put that in there, because I love that costume. It's like a denim jacket with like flames and stuff. And back in the 90s, it was like, if it wasn't that with cool thing with flames on it, it's like, well, hey, it's just not that cool then. That's why I love the Diablo from Grand Theft Auto 3. They need to bring that car back. The Diablo was like the best car in the world to me. But those are some unlockables that I thought of. I know I basically only mentioned Resident Evil and Devil May Cry, but hey, like a franchise that's going off nearly 30 years, and then the other franchise it basically spawned. It's like, hey, I'm gonna stick with Resident Evil for a good chunk of time. But like I said, Dead Space has a great one. New Game Plus in general, if you want to count that as like an unlockable, is really cool. This slightly ties into one of my more recent episodes with Days Gone. One of the unlockables they have in that game, if you go to all of the little crash sites that they have in there, you can actually unlock the taser. And that's because Ben Studio is the company that made Siphon Filter. And so it was like, hey, if you get all of these things, you unlock like a special weapon, and it's the taser from Siphon Filter. So you can like just zap zombies and electrocute them. And I believe they set on fire in Days Gone as well, just like you could do that for Siphon Filter, which is like the only thing I remember about owning that game back in the day. I don't think I even beat the second level of Siphon Filter when I was a kid. But let me tell you, I electrocuted the F out of that dude standing on top of the building. In that first level, I'll never forget that. Every time I came out, there's like a dude that's standing on the building. I'm like, sorry, man. And I would just zap him until he just started setting on fire. That was like one of the craziest things in the world. Not an unlockable, but definitely an insane mechanic that you would not anticipate. But those are my very random, quick thoughts on just some cool unlockables in games. Like I said, definitely check out my extra modes video that definitely ties into this. I talk about, once again, it's admittedly a lot of Resident Evil stuff, but definitely some cool unlockables there. I mentioned some stuff about the Warriors, which is an unlockable thing, so you can kind of jump on that. It's a whole beat 'em up side scroller thing that you actually unlock after beating the game. So definitely check that out. You can get more explanation there, because I don't want these videos to have too much overlap and I'm just repeating every single thing. So check that out. I appreciate the views, of course. But of course, we'd love to know your favorite unlockables in games, whether it's characters, costumes, extra modes, anything that you guys can think of. I would love to know what it is, especially if it's like something silly. Like, you know, there's some things where it's like, Silent Hill comes to mind, where it's like, I don't know if we can count the crazy endings as unlockables. They're just silly endings if you do weird stuff. So I can't really count those, but those would definitely be up there. If you counted those as unlockables, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna count the dog. Like we have to count the dog because that's silly. But I can't really count it as an unlockable. It's just like a crazy ending that can happen. So maybe that can be its own separate video, just like silly endings. But like I said, we'd love to know what you guys think about unlockables in games. What games should have more unlockables? Like I said, I feel like Resident Evil, typically speaking, does a fantastic job. I'm fortunate in the fact that that's my favorite franchise on earth. So for me, that tends to be really good. I can beat Resident Evil and I'm like almost guaranteed, unless it's that effing RE3 remake, which I don't even want to get into right now. But unless it's that, I tend to have like a bunch of cool things that I can play around with after I officially beat the game. But we'd love to know your thoughts on unlockables, your favorite unlockables, like I said, whether they're just weapons, skins, extra modes, all that good stuff. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.